GNT show is intended for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. These are the voyages of the GNT show. Our continuing mission to explore Star Trek storytelling, to seek out new worlds and interesting characters, to Boliga, where no show has gone before. Live long and prosper, bitches.
And welcome to this supplemental log of the GNT show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you, how you be? This is Gettysburg 7, also known as Nick. With me, extraordinaire producer wearing his top hat and tails and cane and his bow tie over his Klingon armor. It's Ceridium.
Kapla! It's party time.
It is. Joel on True Bitches. And this episode, I need to say up front, we're recording this on the evening of the 23rd of June, 2016, and I say that because this is a very topical interview we're doing right now, so I wanted to get that out there. And I want to introduce, all the way from New Zealand, Academy Award winner for An Officer and a Gentleman, it's Christian Gossett. Oh.
Hello.
Great as the drill sergeant.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, you were great as a drill sergeant. So, my first question, what was it like to work with Richard Gere? Now, Christian Gossett is with us. He, with the rules that came out yesterday in his time, because he is 12 hours ahead. So, those that don't know, he is the temporal Cold War guy. CBS Paramount put out the rules for the fan films, and it has shaken the Star Trek community. I don't think it's an exaggeration for those that follow to say that. And Christian has some first-hand experience in fan films, and also, evidently, I believe you're a hater now. Is that true? Are you in the club of haters too?
No, I am not a hater. I don't know who's hating who. But
well, any disagreement is classified as hatred.
That's right. Yeah, that's unfortunate because really, it's funny. It always struck me as odd and very telling, actually, that when things started to go bad in the Axanar Echo Chamber, it became very non-Federation-like, right? It's like if you're emulating the Federation, then dissent is encouraged. Period.
Well, it became Cardassian.
You know? Yeah, exactly.
That is a good analogy.
So
Thank you.
You directed Prelude to Axanar, which we on this show we talked about and we liked a lot. So can you tell us from the beginning how you got involved with Prelude and clear up some misconceptions that may be out there or misinformation?
Yeah, sure. Years and years ago, when Alec and I were close, he asked me to help him, to show him how one makes a film. He wanted to show CBS that he could make Star Trek a credible, professional level Star Trek. He wanted to really make what you call in the industry as a spec. He wanted to make a calling card, a piece that would help him prove his worth as a producer. And the first couple of things I said to him were based on my experience as an intellectual property creator since I was 19 years old. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of the Los Angeles industry since I was a kid. We moved out from New York. My father was a New York theater guy. He comes out to LA in the 70s. He becomes a LA actor guy. And, my first set, I was 5 years old, and Yaphet Kotto, showed me where the craft service table was.
Oh, God, I love Yaphet Kotto.
He was very cool. Everybody else on set was like, who brought the kit? And Yaphet Kotto was like, hey, man, there's the food over there. I was like, you can have anything you want. I said, I love you.
And that was a large man.
He was. And I was like 7, so it was pretty funny.
Right on.
So, I've been around a long time. And the first thing I said to him was, listen, Alec, why wouldn't you want to make your own space story? Because I laid it out for him. I said, look, best case scenario, right away. I had been through this on my own stories. I had designed for, at that point, Lucasfilm Licensing and others. And I kind of knew how things could go well and go badly. And I said to him, best case scenario, if you do some great stuff, they just take this from you. Worst case scenario, they shut you down. Best case, they just take it from you. That's the best thing that can happen. the odds are. I mean, I don't know if there. Yes, he's always believed that in the miraculous, that basically it would be so good that they would make him Rick Berman and everybody would live happily ever after. But that was a very, 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 what do you call that? Like threading the needle, or trying to find it. That's a low margin of error kind of game to play. But he was set. He was dead set. He wanted to show that he could make Trek, and he didn't want to make it. He had all that knowledge from being a Trek fan and wanted to put it to use. And so he kind of went away. And this happens over the course of a long time. Doesn't happen, 3 days later we're making the movie. This is years of conversations because we were friends. He lived across the states in Georgia, and we would talk about this. He'd come to town, and we'd go for a hike or breakfast or something, and we'd talk. And he came over and he mentioned it a few times in a row, and I said, he's really serious about this. So I said, look, if you're really serious, you won't need to go. If you really want to make a film, you have to go, either get a writer or write it yourself. Go to Robert McKee's story class. I basically put him through this I told him everything he had to do. Go to acting classes since you want to act as Garth. Go to writing classes since you want to write it. Learn as much as you can. Here's a book. I recommended several production books to him. And so he, this happened over years, and he was very inspired by the McKee class, and then he met James Cawley and the New Voyages crew, and he was very excited by that. And I thought that was, I'm like, that's great. Look, you found your people, make some fan films, that'd be cool. But then more and more he said something to me that made me excited. He wanted to do this Klingon War story, Axanar. I've been wanting to do the Klingon Wars for ever since I saw, since I was a kid, because I could never get enough Klingons in the original series. And I'm an original series guy. I don't have anything against the new shows, but that's what I vibe with, is the early show. There's a lot of dated stuff about it, but that's my first Trek, and I kind of go there naturally. And so I thought, when I saw Saving Private Ryan, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I just had this crazy kind of inspiration out of left field, which was, because I was raised on war movies. I'm from a military family. As I was telling you guys, my uncle was 82nd Airborne. I had another uncle that was multiple tours in Vietnam. Thank you. And my father was an artilleryman in the Army, and on the proximity, all my cousins and relatives back east are, they go straight from the service to law enforcement, Interpol, all over the place. And so when I saw,
are they Irish? I got to ask, are they Irish? Because that's the Irish career model.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it.
That's my family. That's my dad's family back east. We were supposed to be from Boston, but my grandma was drunk on the boat, so they let us stay until New York. That's the story I'm told.
Boston is a pit.
Right on.
Boo Yankee!
Right? I know we're Yankees. Hey, I'm a total Yankee guy as a result. So thanks, Grandma.
There you go.
Right. So it all works out. That's how Irish that. So at any rate, what was that? So yeah, I was like, listen, when I saw Ryan, it was so procedurally correct. I fell in love, right? I mean, fire and maneuver, and it was World War II in such an incredibly plausible, like accurate, authentic way. I can't say accurate because I've never been in combat, but I can say that it created an authentic experience, right? As far as I know, being a non-combat civilian. And I thought, you know what? Star Trek is to Saving Private Ryan is to Star Trek I saw this connection. Let me try to explain this more clearly. If you look at Saving Private Ryan and you hold it up against one of your not so good, not so accurate war movies, any World War II movie that's like doesn't really care about the tank, doesn't really care about the uniforms or the weapons, right? There's lots of those made in the 60s that didn't really care about authenticity. That's kind of like what the original series was in my head. And Saving Private Ryan showed me the possibility that there was a Star Trek that was still true to that war, to that show, but at the same time, just like more authentic. Are you guys getting at all getting what I'm saying? Or
no, I am.
Again?
Yeah, I get it.
Saving Private Ryan compared to the Dirty Dozen.
There you go. If TOS is the Dirty Dozen, then I wanted to make the Star Trek that was Saving Private Ryan. Thank you, Dave. That's what I'm talking about. Like, so that means you could do some really cool, gritty stuff and still be true to the original timeline, still be true to the prime timeline, and at the same time, take some liberties visually. Being a concept designer most of my life, I like the idea of taking liberties and regenerating material, but in such a way that was actually true to the prime timeline. So that was where I was at in 1997. This was before I even met Alec. But that vision coincided with his wanting to do action art, so that's why we got together. That's why I decided to become a part of this thing with him.
Interesting.
And yeah, so it was me and him. We had this vision that meshed, and it worked. It really worked. And because at that point there was still a real, we were still communicating. He really was. He was listening, in a very collaborative way, and that didn't continue, unfortunately. After Prelude, and I've seen this happen before as well. I've seen people, they get a little taste of success and they want to do things differently. And that's essentially what happened. Not to go into too much detail, but Prelude was a nice, humble success.
I'm looking at you, Chevy Chase.
and so that was things changed. When on Prelude I brought on a bunch of professionals to help us do it. Alec had never produced anything before, right? So I brought in and so we raised $100,000 on Kickstarter, and I knew we needed a real production savvy core of staff to manage the logistics of making a production and not wasting $100,000. So I brought in a couple of great producers, one of whom was volunteering in his off time. He was working on Guardians of the Galaxy at the time, and he volunteered in his off time to come help us out. And he did a great job, obviously. He's the one that found the sound stage that we shot Prelude on. He's the one that brought in the DP, and the DP brought in the crew, and the crew brought in the cinematographers and the grip and electric package. I mean, these are rubber meets the road, rank and file, badass veteran professionals, and that's why Prelude looks like the way it does. And these were all brought on by those couple of people that I brought on to manage the logistics. I mean, again, being from a military family, making a film is very much like an operation. It's like a campaign, and they go for 2 days, or they go for 10 days, or 100 days. But you have to manage your resources.
And that coming from a military family, I think you can appreciate. There's the old term: amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics.
Thank you. Exactly. It's exactly right. And so these people knew that, and that's why Prelude looks so good. That's why all that money is on the screen. And then, unfortunately, after that,
now I have to ask:
basically,
was the shooting of Axanar? What was that? A good collaborative process, and did things run smoothly?
Prelude?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did because those people were in place and this professional crew was there, and Alec was listening to my counsel, and we were still partners collaboratively, very much so, and everything therefore ran smooth because there's so much. He had a lot of passion and a lot of desire and a lot of willingness to learn, and that made a huge difference. And then, but that was before the success of Prelude. When Prelude is released, he basically felt like, there's things I want to do differently this time. And the people that came on, if the people that came onto the crew, they worked for nothing, most of them, and even those that didn't work for nothing, they worked at severely pennies on the dollar. You're talking about makeup artists that have Academy Awards that are working for nothing for the day.
Wow.
Just the cost of their materials and just bringing in their chairs. There's these amazing, wonderful barbershop chairs to do the stuff with, and these amazing wigs. And, I mean, this was an amazing show because everybody brought so much. There's so much more value on the screen. If Prelude had actually cost if we'd actually paid for everything at cost that a production has to actually spend, as opposed to the donations and generosity of a fan film, it would have been 3 to 5 times the budget.
Wow.
And it was a big show, and people were very generous, and it was great, and it was smooth, and it was you say smooth, but like plans, contact the enemy, all that stuff. I mean, every shoot has it, but it was actually smooth. In fact, it was funny on the days of the shoot. The people who had never shot any Star Trek professionally, myself included, we were a little more tense, right? I had never shot any Star Trek, and Star Trek really is its own creature. It really is an amazing thing, and it's its own beast with its own needs and challenges. But the people that had done Star Trek, Hertzler, Gary Graham, Kevin Haney, the guys who had worked on Real Trek, they were just like, "Oh man, you guys kidding? You're doing great. This is smooth sailing."
Right on.
We are right right on time. You guys are doing great. It's all going to be fine. Don't worry. And that was great. It was great to have those veterans on the floor, you know, telling us that, look, yeah, we're going over a little bit. They're like, this is nothing. This is half the time we usually spend. You know, there's a reason why Trek is so expensive to make. And it was great to get that you know, that approval from those veterans. At any rate, the shoot goes great. The rest is a little bit history. The money comes in, 630, I believe it was, 580 after the fees to Amazon and Kickstarter. And we got this war chest to do some really cool stuff. And unfortunately, at that point, that was when things changed. Alec wanted to change personnel. I disagreed. Alec wanted to get rid of certain people that had worked tirelessly. I disagreed. Alec wanted to have certain scenes in the movie. I disagreed. But we were no longer collaborative. All of a sudden, it was he had, and I wanted to keep on the producers, but they actually didn't want to go through it. The way that Alec was starting to run things, they no longer saw eye to eye.
Wow.
Because they wanted to spend the money on, they know that once you got the money in filmmaking, once you got the cash, you keep the memory card in the camera and the plugs in the wall, and you go. You don't stop for anything. You really try to go. And
right. It's a momentum thing.
And and I wanted to, even though I wanted to do some script changes, but at the same time, that didn't mean we had to stop production at all. We should have been spending that money immediately on resources for the makeup team to make what we needed to do for the aliens, resources for the wardrobe to get that going, resources for the things that me and my team knew had to happen. But that we weren't getting those budgets approved anymore. It was no longer, hey, Alex, we need money for this. And we would get, okay, here's the money. Go for it. Cool. Make it happen, A players. Now it was, you know what? I don't know. I'm holding on to that. I'm waiting. I want, you know, I don't know. I don't know if this person's going to be on the movie. I don't know if this DP is good enough for Axanar. I don't know if this person's good enough for Axanar. And I no longer had any say.
Sounds like he was second guessing your decisions and whatnot.
And they had served him well. You know, the work did the job. So that kind of second guessing was I didn't feel it was founded in anything that was really helpful or credible or constructive. And my people started to leave. And these are the people who knew they're the ones who know the logistics. They're the ones who know what things cost. They're the ones who know where the sound stages are. They're the ones who know how to make a deal on a sound stage. That was another argument we had. I wanted to work in a sound stage. There was a conversation that we had at Kamikaze. It was myself and Orion Akaba was there. He was the narrator who played John Bill's voice in Prelude. And Rob Burnett was there. And Rob Burnett and I were desperately trying to figure out how we could convince Alex not to build a sound stage. We had a drink and we were like, how can we get him to realize that we should just rent a sound stage, make a deal, and start the movie. And unfortunately, Alec was like, no, look, he laid down the map and he made his case. And what could we do? You know, we still didn't agree with him, but we just kind of agreed to disagree. And we're like, look, you've got control of money. What are we supposed to do? But all these things, the House of Cards was starting to fall. And it wasn't long before I had had enough. You know, my producer had gone back to his Marvel shows. The other producer had gone back to her films. The DP was getting just basically played around. The production designer who was really keen to do Axanar had been replaced in public on Facebook without ever being told he was going to be replaced.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was a big one for me because the production designer Scott Cobb had come on and just did an amazing job. I mean that walk that Richard Hatch does through the red banners, he just whipped that up out of nothing. You know, just made that this really credible thing out of nothing. And so, but it's a matter of public record. You know, and all these things are just matters of public record. One day on Facebook, I hadn't been told, Scott hadn't been told, and there's Alec announcing we have a new production designer. And that was a bit of a shock. I wasn't happy about that. It wasn't the first time he had done something like that. Kind of made a below the waterline decision without helping me. And you know, after a few of those, the wind goes out of your sails. And I was counting the days from that point. So then I left, and I made a point of leaving, of you know, kind of showing him. I did it in such a way that I don't normally do things this way, but I wanted to kind of make an example. I wanted to show him what it felt like to do to him what he had done to Scott. and two other people, at least one other person I know of on the show. And I basically just announced it on Facebook without telling him.
Turnabout is fair play.
Turnabout is fair play. Thank you. And that's the way I did it. And he's obviously, he didn't see I've never gotten him to understand that that's why I did that. I tried to explain it to him, but he wouldn't listen. And
so
and that's inconsistent, you know.
Did the threats then begin at that point? Because I know Mike and I have been threatened by him for voicing an opinion. So I can't even imagine what that was like for you.
Oh my goodness, yeah, it's been. I have a whole. You know, we've seen it all over. I'm sure you've seen the emails and the way that he communicates with people and the way that he tries to dominate them. And the way
we suffered it firsthand, and he never did it again after the IMs that he sent me. I just posted publicly, and it ceased right there. Because what is he going to say? That I'm lying?
Right. Exactly. And he really counts on that, unfortunately. I mean, I have emails from him that I'm doing him a serious favor. I'm not posting them, you know?
I've been married 3 times. He doesn't scare me, okay?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, no, and it's just, for me, it's not fear either. It's just you just try not to get it to that point. You just want to be professional and you want to demonstrate to your peers that
you've handled yourself with dignity through this because you've been quiet.
Thanks, man.
And today on the 23rd of June, you kind of let a few things out because when the guidelines that he wanted so bad came out, when they didn't meet what he wanted, the acolytes started pointing fingers at everybody but themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's so clear. I mean, there is one entity in all of fandom over the decades of free reign that CBS and Paramount have given people. Decades of free reign. Never been a problem. What has changed? Alec Peters. Alec Peters changes the game. Axanar changes the game. Axanar makes today happen. And not Prelude. Prelude to Axanar, we put that money on the screen. We did it right. And those, that was Axanar, the feature, is very different than Prelude to Axanar. Different crew, different people, different command chain. I mean, just different system, different way of doing things. And when he took over for the feature, things changed. And he pushed the commercial boundaries to a point where there's nobody. I mean, you got a buddy, right? The metaphor is so simple. You got a friend comes over. And he's like, your wife kind of digs him, just as friends. Oh, they have, I wouldn't want to deprive my wife of having this buddy, even though he's a guy. It's a little different, but, and then he just abuses that privilege at some point. You're not going to just sit there and say, hey, man, hey, you pushed the boundary.
That was better than my house analogy, I got to tell you. My analogy was somebody likes my house and then starts renting rooms and making money off of it and gets mad at me for kicking them out.
I'm sorry. Actually, I think yours is better and less sexist, so I apologize to everybody.
No, my wife's hot, so I'll take it as a compliment.
And those that house thing works for you. Like, look, we gave you free reign, and you just kept pushing it to the point where we can't give you that free reign anymore. It's just that simple.
All right, so I have a few questions for you. Yeah. And I don't know if you were there when some of this happened, so if not, we just move on from it. But one of the things that has bugged me to no end, how was a decision made to sell a coffee without a license and pocket that money?
All I can say is that it was one of those things that just basically happened while Alec was off stage from me. You know what I mean? For me, this was always an opportunity to shoot some Trek and to realize, I've been wanting to direct for some time. I've directed a few short films, and this was an opportunity to shoot some Trek and to use the same network that I had used to shoot my previous films that were award-winning, and now is a chance to shoot some science fiction and get that on the reel. So I wasn't Mr. Axanar all the time like Alec is. Right? So I was the director and writer and his guide, but he would communicate with all these people. I'm sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say he just showed up one day and said, hey, by the way, I got a deal.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
He's excited. That's how these things happen. He would show up, hey, listen, this is so cool. New things happening. It's a coffee. Somebody loves somebody loves what we're doing. They do coffee. They love it so much they want it. So it was very innocent. You know, it started out, and that's the thing. You know, that's why it started out as this kind of innocent thing, but then it quickly becomes like, well, as innocent as that might seem to you, there are rules about these things, and those rules of commerce are there for a reason. And nobody, you know, there isn't Star Trek Continues coffee for a reason. There isn't New Voyages coffee for a reason. There isn't Renegade coffee for a reason. So probably, nor should there be axe in our coffee. But this was not the kind of thing you could say to him. He really did have a very similar kind of thing you'll hear about certain personalities where there's a certain amount of communication they will not tolerate. You know, they just don't want to hear it. If you're messing with their kind of happy valley of everything works out and everything, you know, I know best, then you just can't communicate. I'm not going to be disingenuous. I never said to him, dude, don't sell the coffee. In fact, whenever there was any kind of hesitation about that stuff, he would always come in with, hey, listen, I'm in contact with CBS. I'm sure it's fine. That was one of the reasons why we tolerated these things, was because, first of all, we didn't really have a lot of contact with these people. These were people that Alec knew, whether it was coffee, whether it was a mini bust of Richard Hatch, which, you know, that was where, it's funny, that was where it kind of, that was a little wake-up call for me. I was like, hey, none of us were making money on this, and or, you know, not very much at all. And then he would have this thing, and he was, you know, selling it for donations essentially. And, you know, you can call it what you want, but if you're giving someone something and they're giving you money, it's a really,
you're selling, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's, at that point you got to be careful and you got to be respectful. And we were told that CBS knew about all this stuff, that he was communicating, everything's above board, everything's on the table. Don't worry, I'm in contact with CBS. We were told that like a mantra. And now, you discover that wasn't the case. You know, you discovered, no, were you just saying that? Because then only at that point do you say to yourself, was he really in touch with CBS? Or if he was, were those conversations going? Is he coming back with an objective report about those decisions? Because only at that point you realize, maybe I should have done some diligence on that. maybe this guy doesn't have the rights to the Brooklyn Bridge.
Boy, yeah. I mean, there must have come a point when you had to stop and ask yourself, you know, what's really going on here? This can't be really happening. This can't be. We can't have Hackett approval to do all this stuff. Was there ever a moment like that for you?
There were several, and the final straw for me was there was one that that I'm not going to go into. I apologize. I'm sorry to give you guys this big old cliffhanger, but there's one that I have to hold on to that was really like a very, very pivotal moment. But for the sake of the case still being pending,
that's
hold on.
Understandable.
Yeah, thanks. Got on that one. So I will say this. I will say that really there's another last straw I can't really talk about. Okay, there's a few. There's a few things. There are a few pivotal moments. There were a few, and they were coming hard and fast. Right, all my friends who made Prelude, the majority of them were gone. He still had Tobias, and Tobias is amazing, and Tobias is absolutely innocent in all of this. You know,
Tobias does amazing work.
The best thing. It does amazing work, and he's the best thing Alec has, and it's still to this point. And other than that, and a few of the actors, of course, are amazing too. And but they're really coming hard and fast. Most of my friends are gone, and I'm realizing, well, you know, I really this is not working out. I gotta join my friends and just walk away on this. And when he asked me to do the Vulcan scene for a very, 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 very meager amount of money. And I can't say how much it was because we had different conversations and there were different budgets that he told me that were based on, unfortunately, nothing. because he wasn't the producer. The people that knew the logistics of actual production that could actually make a budget were gone, and he tried his best, and I'm sure he thinks he knew what he was doing, but he doesn't. And that's unfortunately the case a lot of the time. I made a budget. Well, you made a budget, but dude, you've never done it before, so I assure you it's full of holes. And you can't even see the holes because you've never done this before. And please don't assume that after an entire life of not doing something, you can do it as well as someone who's trained their entire life to do it. Don't be that pompous. But in any field, right? In any field, everybody thinks they can make movies, but or write or.
It's that whole logistics thing again. You think okay, I need to drive 100 miles, but what you're not taking into account is not only the gas, but the food, the ammunition, the...
What happens if something breaks down? Do you have a spare tire?
Yes, do you have spare...
Exactly.
Do you have... What if somebody gets hurt? Who takes their place? The whole bit.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. All these contingencies, and none of them were there in the budget, and the budget was so meager. It was so meager, and I was like, this is. I said to myself, okay, so here's the situation. When we had $100,000, when we had $100,000 Kickstarter, we were in the ballpark of $100,000. We put as much of that money on the screen as we could. That's what me and my crew understood. We brought that to the table. We understood that to be the meaning of a fan film. When people are donating to you money to make this, you put that money where they can see it and where they can enjoy it and where they can eat their popcorn to it. Or what have you, snack of choice, right? And so, but now here I was in a situation where Alec had been given hundreds of thousands of dollars, and by the time I'm being asked to shoot something else, it is a pitiful fraction of that $500,000 plus money, and that didn't make any sense mathematically. He was still hoping, of course, that the second Kickstarter that this scene would be based on, that this scene would motivate. Would have the same, if not an even more grand effect, right? He was like, okay, so this Vulcan scene is going to raise us $2 million. But I said to him, to no avail, I said, Alex, you're giving me this meager amount of money, but you're hoping that this meager amount of money can result in even more donation. Do you understand how that's a problem for me? The reason why Prelude works is because we put all this money on the screen. And now you're giving me a fraction and you're asking me to do the same thing. It's not going to work that way. But this was to no avail. I couldn't get him to see the sense of that. And that's when I left. That was the last straw.
And so was there contact after you left?
Heated contact.
Okay.
Heated contact.
And
yeah. And it was that. Go ahead.
When you saw the follow-on funding campaigns raising the money that they did, and then the air quote financial report air quote, what were you thinking at this time?
I was glad that I had left. I was glad that I had left. At that point, I was like, I wish I'd left sooner, honestly. And all kinds of, at that point, Nick, you're playing Monday morning quarterback big time, right? You go through such a range of emotions. One of the things I went through was, man, I just should have stayed on him. I should have basically said, hey, listen, plan for success. If Prelude really does hit, I should have taken into account this contingency, but I didn't. That was one of the things I went through. Was, man, I could have talked to him. I could have stopped him. I could have talked him down off of the heights that he let himself ascend to, and really tried to hold it all together. But then that was really more. That wasn't so much a realistic possibility as it was my own fatigue. That was just like dude that really never would have happened. Right? If I had just dug in my heels and tried to show him the truth of what I was saying even harder, he just would have resisted it harder. There was nothing. I was doing that, in fact.
Were we at the point? At this point, was it at the point where anything that wasn't in that that tunnel was somehow a betrayal? You're not a true fan. All of that.
Oh, you've had discussions with Alec Peters at that point, haven't you?
Had discussions, and also just watch the social media posting. Anyone who doesn't see the world
exactly
in that frame. And look, I've said this. I don't care for what's happened. I don't care for how he's acted. I admire his passion. I do. I have no doubt.
Sure.
I don't believe he started out with this story saying, how can I line my pockets and do that? I don't believe that for a second.
Right.
But what I think happened was, and I'm going to use the most horrible example I can use, after Czechoslovakia folded, everything else fell into place.
Exactly.
Yes, Goodman's Law
Sure,
just
sure,
took over.
sure.
but,
Yeah.
but
Right?
once that
Have you had a couple
happened,
of beers all of a sudden?
yeah, once that
Yeah.
happened, we
It's
had
a Robin Williams joke.
yeah, we had purges, and
Yeah.
Mike was a donor. There are people who were donors to Axanar who were kicked off,
Yeah.
who never posted a thing, but were kicked out of the social media stuff just for being
asking a question.
or for being a member of another group and not
True.
even interacting on that
Yeah.
group, just for being a member.
Yeah. 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 And there's one thing that history, I'm so glad to bring that up, because history teaches us that when that's happening, when that dynamic is occurring, there are things that the entity that is making that happen always has stuff that they don't want out. They have stuff to hide. He talks about these annual reports. Man, those are not itemized audits by any means. Okay, I don't see those. I want to see itemization. I want to see an audit. I don't want to see, we've done this report and we put these totals in these boxes and here it all adds up.
Fill in the numbers and hope it all adds up to what we're supposed to at the end.
And
I
I know this will drive the Axelites crazy, but Star Trek Continues got a 501c3 because their books were audited by outside agencies.
Right, exactly.
I don't see Axanar getting a 501c3.
I'm glad you bring up Continues because, no, I don't either. I do not either. After, when this all happened, when I was done with Alec and I walked away, I was like, oh, you know what? I owe Vic Mignogna a call because I had met, Alec introduced me to Vic years before when Alec was still doing stuff with James and Vic, and they were going to do this all together. It was going to be shot in Ticonderoga. And then at one point, Vic got the Alec treatment. Vic was like, oh, well, Vic is, he became the other, the cast out evil person.
Yeah.
And you could, oh my goodness, I had to ask Alec, like, Alec, will you please don't bring up Vic? You just knew, like, if it was like talking to certain, if you brought that up, it was the end of the conversation. And it was that bad, and for a long time. And being in front of Alex, I once again, I trusted him. I was like, oh, well, Alec, if you feel this strongly about it, that Vic guy must be a real jerk. And so here I was. Now I was the jerk, and I said, you know what? It's time to check Vic Mignogna's side of this story. And Vic was really gracious about it. I said, Vic, what happened with you and Alec? Alec never gave me the story, and it's true. When I asked Alec, hey, what happened? You never get the story. You always get these kind of weird fragments of what happened. You never really get a really complete sense of an idea of what had happened to make him so angry. So I asked Vic the same thing, because Vic said, listen, man, I just didn't want to work with him anymore. That was it. I told him I don't want to work with him anymore, and that was it. I became just Lucifer. And I got to tell you, having met from that point forward, I said, well, man, listen, I am now, where you were with him. So I got to tell you, I'm empathizing with those who are cast out from his circle. And I befriended the continued cast. Vic was incredibly gracious about it. And met Michelle and hung out with them. And I got to tell you, it was a whole different group. This was a fan film. This was a family. Their productions are like reunions, and that's where I get that from. I said that today on my Facebook. I said, fan films, their crews are like families. Their productions are like reunions. I got that from a dinner, a celebration dinner that the Star Trek Continued cast and crew were having. Vic was there. Lou Ferrigno was there. And Adam Howard was there. Adam Howard, the visual effects supervisor on Prelude, and we were all just like, "Wow, this is the way it was. This is the way it really should be. This is what a fan film is supposed to feel like. A big, fun family. We're just having fun here. This is the black.
It's not a trip.
Isn't it wonderful?
It's not a trip of self. It's a trip of track.
Yeah. And well said. That's it. And that all of a sudden you're like, wow, this was not. I had just been through months and months of this in this kind of opposite situation where it really became, it was like, a Stalinist organization, everybody, nobody can speak ill or they get,
it was Apocalypse Now.
Are silent. It really was. It really was. And that's when I was like, okay, there's no looking back. And it was hard not to be silent for so long, and I'm still, believe me, this is the tip of the iceberg. I have to be careful, and I don't want But I'm just saying facts. These are all just things as I experienced them. They're things I saw and the feelings I felt. And so, there are other things that if I'm pushed, they will come out. I'm trying to give him like, look, man, if you push me, you leave me alone. You and Rob knows.
What I don't understand is, like, it sounds like you had a good relationship with Rob Burnett, because you said you guys were trying, and then he turned and then says things like, well, you quit.
That's, you know what?
Like the mob, you're a rat now.
Totally. I know, but that's what Alec does. Unfortunately, Alec comes between people and he makes them choose sides. And I don't hold it against Rob at all. I feel bad because I've been that guy, right? I must feel what Vic must have felt like when I kind of turned on him, because I had met Vic. We didn't have a problem with each other. I met Vic and Michelle one time, a couple times with Alec, and we had a great time, a lot of laughs. And then Vic tells me he's on the outs, and I was like, yeah, he's on the outs. And it's when you're with someone that has this kind of me or the you're with me or against me kind of mentality and foments that among those people, that's what happens. And as Vic had been gracious with me, I'm being gracious with Rob. I'm not angry at Rob. I can't wait to see him. We're going to be on Starship SmackDown in San Diego at San Diego Comic-Con in a few weeks. And, these are again, as I said on my Facebook page, these are the kinds of dramas that happen in the entertainment industry. And it's neither party should really ever give it too much vitriol. I like to point out the fact that, as an example, I'm not going to make that example, actually. That's too grandiose. I have no animosity against Rob. I can't wait till we're close again and this all blows over. We both obviously disagree about Alec. As far as me and Rob are concerned, I consider it like a Zoolander thing, like Derek and Hansel. Because Mugatu is the problem, not Derek and Hansel. Mugatu is the problem.
I don't understand what I don't understand through all of this, especially since December when the lawsuit dropped, the failure to understand where they were in the wrong and to argue things like, well, Vulcans are no different than elves and all of these things, where there's no sense of personal responsibility for the actions. It's everybody else's fault, and we are the good guys, and I just don't understand that. Look, I screwed up at work not long ago, and I had to go up to my boss, the big boss, like the big boss, like the person who could suspend or fire, and say, hey, I fucked up. I apologize. And he was very gracious because that's what he was looking for. Somebody that said, hey, I understand, I screwed up.
Mea culpa.
They are still antagonizing over social media.
Yeah. And this is the kind of lack of understanding of the reality of the professional aspect of the situation that makes the guidelines a necessity, frankly. What it all comes down to is you can't display an ability to accept reality, not reality as you would wish it, but reality as it is with others in a social, grouping, in a social agreement. Well, we're just going to have to be draconian. You're forcing our hand. If all this is beyond you, then we're going to have to go places where we've never had to go before you came along.
Because, James Cameron may be a dick to work with now, but he wasn't when he made Terminator. You know what I mean? He built up that cachet. You don't walk in acting like you know everything.
I'm forced to say that my encounter with James Cameron was the coolest thing in the world.
No, I'm just saying. No,
he was like the coolest guy in the world.
Let me.
I know he has that.
Well, yeah. Let me read. After Titanic and all of that, he can do whatever he wants because he's built up that kind. If Steven Spielberg was the biggest prick on the planet, and I think we all know that he's not, he's got a track record to back it up.
Right. I see your thing. Yeah, that's right. And
he didn't go into
to
duel with Dennis Weaver as a dick. He didn't go into Jaws as a dick. And I'm not saying Alec's a dick, but if you read social media, he's a dick.
It is, it's a shame that...
And I'm going to get threatened with a lawsuit for that, I know.
I can neither come. Anyway, so moving on. Moving on.
But I think you know what I'm saying.
I think the
you don't
guidelines.
go into something treating people like that with no record.
Yeah, true. That point is well made. And this is the thing. Those people that are being loyal to him, they're being loyal to him because he has done everything he can to kind of minimize the contribution of all these people. My post, I did a thread last night in which I referenced a Carlos Pedraza article, and I got to tell you, I mean, it's been, as someone who witnessed Axanar from its birth. The moment Alec comes up to me and says, "Hey, I want to do this thing. How do I make a movie? And I want to make a Star Trek movie." And that those years ago, being there the moment when Richard Hatch says yes, being there at the moment when Kate Vernon, first looks at the script, being there at the moment where we talk to the makeup effects lab, being there at all these key moments of Axanar. I got to tell you, Axon Monitor is objective. It is objective. It is fair. It is balanced. It is a bit of a counterweight. It seems like a counterweight because the Axon Monitor, the Axanar echo chamber is just so zealous. But unfortunately, what those people don't realize, and I hope they do at some point, is that their loyalty is to the people that made Prelude, and they're no longer working with Alec. Most of them. There are a few. Again, Tobias Richter is such a doll, and he's such a great person, and his work is so great, and he's a real exception to all these points I'm making. But a vast majority, mathematically speaking, the majority of the people that made Prelude what it is are no longer there, and therefore Axanar is not what they're really loyal to. They're loyal to Prelude, and if they're loyal to Prelude, they're loyal to the crew of Prelude, and the crew of Prelude is gone. For the most part, as well as I got to tell you, I don't know what's going to happen with the cast, but Tony's gone. I mean, Admiral Ramirez is gone, and I don't know.
Well, that was an interesting thing that happened in December. We found out that he had been gone for months, but nobody knew.
Yeah,
and his name was still being,
which is disingenuous.
Yeah, his name was still being used as a draw for donations. Yeah. And then, of course, it was all blamed on him, that his ego and this and that. And I've never heard anything bad said about Tony Todd before.
Exactly. No, let me tell you categorically that whatever rhetoric has come out of Axanar about Tony Todd is absolutely self-serving and inaccurate and wrong. And he was a complete champ. He brought it 1,000% on set, as you can see in the film. And it was an absolute pleasure to work with him. And he saw what the situation was, and he got out. And he's a smart man. And I joined him. I joined him, and a lot of other smart people did as well, because we're professionals, and this was no longer becoming something that it was going where it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was done.
What do you see as the reaction to this interview and what will be said about you?
Oh, you just know that's, you just know that all I'm trying to accomplish is to say thank you once again to everybody who came onto Prelude to help me make something awesome. And thank you to everybody. I mean, there are some friends of mine who donated $10,000 to Prelude to Axanar. $10,000 to Axanar. I have friends that came on that didn't even know about Axanar. They donated because they were followers of my work for some time. So I have skin in this game in the form of friendships, lifetime friendships, and that serious money. And so to those people, all I want to do is thank them once again and let them know that I am constantly thinking about their patronage and their friendship, and I absolutely hold them dear to my heart because they made it, and I told them the story, and they know the situation. So all I'm trying to do is communicate with them, really, and everybody who made Prelude what it is, everybody, the cast and the crew, and let them know that we did a cool thing, and I'm sorry it went where it did, and to those people who are still clinging, who would allow themselves to fall into a place of anger when it really can't serve anything. I just hope that they understand at some point that really, what are you screaming about? Like, really, what are you screaming about? Just take a step back. I assure you, your anger and your defense of this person is unfounded. And CBS and Paramount, if you knew what they know, and if you did business in the entertainment world, you would know that this is not is completely not what Axanar has said about it. The idea that this is some kind of a David and Goliath story. Honestly, if this is David and Goliath, couldn't it be said that David is the other fan productions and Goliath is Axanar, who's brought this down on everybody? That's the David and Goliath story that I see, having had a relationship with this film since its very beginning. That's the David and Goliath that I would argue is more valid and more accurate an example.
And that brings up a great point, because CBS Paramount, there's a segment of fans, even people who understand why they're doing it, who still want to blame them. We never have on the show. It's their property. I don't just get in Mike's car and drive away because I like his car.
Yeah. And you don't go renting it out. You don't go subletting it to people to go on joyride and then keep the money and get him the...
and then badmouth Mike.
And you can justify... Exactly. Hey, Mike's not letting me use a car anymore. What do we think of that? Mike's bad. No,
yeah,
this is...
See, I say that about other stuff about
CBS and Paramount.
So what do you say to those fans that insist on blaming CBS Paramount?
They just really please try to understand it from their perspective. Just try. Just try it on. You know, if it's so obviously wrong, if they're right and CBS and Paramount are this big bad guys and they're just coming down on fan film, really, really try to put yourself in their position and be diligent about it. And if you do actually do that, you'll understand that paradigm is completely false. This is not the big corporations coming down on some innocent fan filmmakers. This is them having to protect their property because someone has soiled the water for everyone. You know, the commercial, the unspoken, unwritten agreement has now become a legal reality for the time being. And yes, you know, and this is, there's a lot of, oh man, sorry, I don't know what that, a little noisy in here. Listen, there's hope. I would say to these fan filmmakers, okay, aside from all that, which is really valid, but let's say you can't go there yet. Let's say you're a young fan filmmaker, you still just don't get it. You've never been in the industry. You just want to make Trek fan films and now you can't. You know what? You're going to have to do what a young George Lucas did when he was told by King Feature Syndicate that they weren't going to sell him the rights to Flash Gordon. You're going to have to make Star Wars. You're going to have to do your own thing. And how fantastic is that? That's Star Trek. Yeah. Star Trek, the wonderful stories, the wonderful story that is Star Trek is all about inspiring people to go beyond what they know. Well, it's time for Star Trek fan filmmakers to go beyond what they know, and instead of paying homage to Star Trek, emulate the ideals of Star Trek and make their own space stories, make their own stories for the time being. You know,
go where no man has gone before.
Go where no fan has gone before.
Yes.
Now that brings up
the most positive way.
That brings up a really good point that please address the people who have said, well, they didn't go after insert name of fan film. Why not?
Oh, man, thank you for bringing this up. I would say exactly. That supports the argument of CBS and Paramount. All these other fan films, all these other people, all these other groups never had a problem. What changes? This guy. Well, then that guy is where you should be focusing your diligence. That guy is where you should be holding up your fine-tooth comb. That guy is what you should be asking yourself. What is it about this guy? Yes, please, ask that question. And you know what? Find out. Find out. Be diligent. Find out, and you will see. And look, if I could know him as I did and be in support of CBS and Paramount, then I assure you anybody can. Because we were pals. We were close pals. And if I can have made this realization about him, then I'm not going to really tolerate strangers telling me that they know him better than I do. The reason why those other places are not getting the attention that he's getting is
they're not drawing attention.
They're not drawing attention. They're not selling coffee. They're not making
paying themselves $38,000.
There are lots of there's lots of things that were done that they didn't do, and that's why. It's a very simple. To ask the question is to answer it.
Can I get what are your thoughts on the fan film guidelines that came out today? What are your general thoughts about?
My general thoughts are that, you know what, you can look at them any way you want. I'm a positive guy. I'm an optimist. I'm all about, you get knocked down 7 times, you get up 8. My father was a boxer. He taught me how to fight. Number one rule of fighting is get up when you're knocked down. Right? Yep. So for me, I would understand absolutely if I were still into making fan films. I would absolutely understand that it feels like you've been knocked out. It feels like you just got the wind knocked out of your sails. You feel like, man, I really had this amazing thing, and I have this amazing, people that are supporting it all over the world, and now we can't do it the way that we've been doing it. I got to tell you, this is an opportunity for fan filmmakers to pool their resources and make something amazing. But you got to accept that limitation. You got to embracing limitation is what this is all about. And I'm telling you, it is not a cliche. It's not just overly optimistic thought. Like, look, if you can make Star Trek fan films, you can make other films. And it's time to try your hand at making those other films. Just try it.
I can't remember the exact quote, but would it adversity breeds advancement or something like that? That the more the you seem hemmed in, the more you can think outside the box.
It's haiku, right? I mean, it's like, just embrace the limitation. I know it's hard. I know they don't want to. I know it feels like this, like, oh man, I've just been rah rah rah. But you know what? Get past that. Get past that, because really, if you really are as into Star Trek and the ideals of Star Trek as you are, you realize that there is no no-win scenario, right? So here's the little Kobayashi Maru for everyone. What are you going to do? You're going to sit there and get burned up, or are you going to rewire the situation and make something cool? Follow the ideals that Roddenberry laid down.
I produce audio fiction, and me and my friends, we do it for the love of it, and I have to admit that I was a little upset over some of these rules. Don't know if they are going to apply towards audio productions, but I was looking at it as it very well could apply. So I've been treating it as such. But listening to you right now, your explanation, your inspiration, has made me feel better. And I want to thank you personally for that, because I've been in a mood all day. Just ask Nick. And so thank you. You're right. We do have to get up. We do have to move forward. We do have to try our own thing next, and you're absolutely correct.
Well, why do we fall down, Mr. Wayne?
To get up.
To learn how to get up.
That's it.
That's right. I'm mixing my IPs.
As you should. As you should. That's what Beacon is all about, man. That's Generation Master.
But so we've had you for a long time. You're in the middle of the afternoon there in New Zealand, correct?
Yeah, so I still got to get back to work. I'm so busted right now.
So that's okay. Anything you want to end on that you'd like to end with us?
I thank you. Thank you very much for giving me a place to speak. Thank you for using your minds and realizing that the situation wasn't was not. When someone puts blinders on you, you're like, hey, wait a minute, why do I need blinders on? Thank you for doing that and being an example for others. And please continue to encourage others to take those blinders off and look at the situation objectively and maturely, and realize that Star Trek is awesome. Go see Beyond, see the new show.
Yes.
Just life is too short, man. Life is too short for all this stuff. Just let's have a blast. Star Trek is not about that. And if some people want to, if some people are in trouble with the people that make Trek, well, then maybe it's the fault of the people who made the problem. Maybe they got some things that they have to be held accountable for, and they have to take accountability for what they've done. Maybe that's the situation. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but that's what I would say. Great to talk.
You're not a lawyer by training?
Feel free to contact me.
Sorry.
But That's good. I get it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your story. I think it sheds a lot of light about what is going on or what happened behind the scenes, and it's important information that needed to get out. And I'm glad that you decided to share it with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Nick. Great talking to you guys.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Christian Gossett joining us from New Zealand. How's that, people? Mike?
Live long and prosper.
Oh.
You
Kapla.
Joe Lontrue, KMG 365.
Music for the GNT show is provided by 5 Year Mission, Enterprise Blues Band, Warp 11, Andrew Allen, and Greth Thor. The GNT show is a BLB production.
Move ahead, walk factor 10. Put a mini skirt on my yo man. Represent the human race. And we make this a happy place. To boldly go where no man's gone before. I think I sang that line once before, but I'm not too sure. We'll be so happy, can't you see? A zero-G community. Gonna travel to new worlds. Beam on down and meet some green girls. Gonna see what we can see. A fancy free galaxy. To boldly go where no man's gone before. I think I sang that line once before, but I'm not too sure. We'll be so happy, can't you see? A zero-G community. Come and take a tour with